Okay, directors, we're ready to go. Thursday, June 16th, Comox Strathcona Waste Management meeting. First, I'd like to acknowledge we're on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nations. And just to let everybody know, Director Arbor is here and myself and staff. So I'll call the meeting to order. And recommendation that the agenda be approved as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Lee and Cornfield. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. And adoption of the minutes for the meeting April 21st.
Move adoption. Wally.
Evans.
Second.
Thank you, Wally and Evans. Thank you. Any errors, omissions? See none. I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none. Carried. Any business arising? No petition delegations, reports. First report, Comox Strathcona Waste Management Advisory Committee report.
Move
Motion
receipt.
receive the report.
Move receipt.
Second.
Director Lee and Director Wally, I believe.
Yep.
Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Second item, referral of proposed value management review policy. Motion receive the report dated June 7th.
Move receipt.
Second.
Okay, Hamir was one and the first one was Hillian. Thank you. Any discussion?
I just had a question.
Okay, we got a presentation first, Director Lee, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, directors. I'd like to introduce Jake Martins, General Manager of Corporate Services, to introduce this report. Jake.
Thank you, James, and through the chair. Yes, this report is being brought forward to the Solid Waste Board in accordance with our recent practice that's been established over the last few years, in which those policies which are being considered for corporate-wide application through the CVRD Board are referred to the Solid Waste Board for consideration of feedback prior to being adopted or considered for adoption. In this case, the proposed policy that is being proposed is P90, Value Management Review of Capital Projects. The proposed policy has been developed in response to a utilities governance study that was conducted by the CVRD over the last number of years. And the expressed interest of the parties and what was contemplated in the report around incorporating third-party expertise into the development and approval process for major capital projects. A value management process can be described as a systematic review using third-party multidisciplinary teams to analyze the functional requirements of a project to improve the value of the project and support informed decision-making, corporate accountability, and transparency. The report notes the positive experience which the CVRD encountered through the Comox Valley Water Treatment Project as being a useful and beneficial experience with respect to value management reviews. The value management reviews are becoming part of industry best practice, and in this regard, staff certainly support the incorporation of it across all services under the CVRD. And the value management review policy would require a minimum of one review for all capital projects where the project is at a value of $25 million, and two for those that are at or above $75 million. In the case of the water treatment project, which was constructed under the CVRD, the review process was estimated around $100,000 to $200,000, which, based on the process and the outcomes, was deemed as certainly a beneficial outcome in the savings that were accrued from the process. With that, Mr. Chair, I'd be pleased to answer any questions. And I'm also joined here by my colleagues, my engineering colleagues, that can help answer any capital project related questions.
Okay, thank you, Jake. And Alternate Director Bissinger.
Sure, thank you. I think it's great that we're doing this. I definitely see some benefit, and we do some stuff similar on the base sometimes. I'm just curious for the liquid waste management, like at which point in the project was a value engineering review done? I'm just looking, like it seems like the concept or schematic design was maybe a bit too early for that, or is that when it occurred?
Thanks for the question, Director. And I'll ask Mark Rutten, our General Manager of Engineering Services, to respond regarding the liquid waste and conveyance process.
Thank you through the CEO and through the chair. So for that project, we did the value management planning process about a year ago or so. So it would have been during the preliminary design for the project.
Okay, and to follow up? Nope, good. Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Tori?
Yeah, well, I agree with the policy. Do we have any projects in waste management over the next 10 years that we anticipate might be above the $25 million mark?
Through the CEO and through the chair. So right now, no, we don't have any projects within the 5-year capital plan that would meet this threshold. So it is definitely reserved for those larger, more complex projects.
Okay, and Director Lee?
Thank you. So we have always, the Solid Waste Board has always hired consultants on multi-million-dollar projects, MTerra, C2MH Hill, various others, and to review and advise the board on major project spending. So would we, if we don't have any over $25 million projects coming up in the next 5 years, would we still be using our consultants to analyze proposals or designs for our solid waste? Would the Solid Waste Board still oversee that?
Yes, thank you. The existing process that we use for project engineering and project management would not change. So we'll still be utilizing consultants, as it makes sense for the different projects that we're bringing forward. And this value management planning process is kind of layered on top of that. So when a project gets to a certain stage in planning, quite early in the planning process, and it's a high value project, we'd bring this team in to kind of review the project and try to take a really detailed look at it and determine if there's a higher value method of delivering that project and achieving the same result. So it doesn't change, the use of consultants, that would remain the same. But on those higher value projects, this additional effort would be put into determining if there's any other value that can be gained from delivering the project.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Cool. Any further questions? Seeing none, then I'll call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 3, solid waste fees and charges management plan 2022. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Did you pick up who second was? No. Who second, please?
I'll second.
It was
Bissinger.
Cornfield, I thought.
Thank you, Director Bissinger. And I'll go to staff.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to introduce Vivian Shaw, our Senior Manager of CSWM Services, who will present this report. Vivian.
Thank you, James. Through the chair to the board, good morning. The CSWM tip fee bylaw sets out the tip fee rates and the condition of use and penalties for the users of the waste management facilities at the Comox Valley and Campbell River Waste Management Centers. As part of this, the staff did a complete review of the tip fee bylaw to reflect the current and anticipated operational costs for 2023, as well as looking at it with a lens of providing more clarity on definitions, clearer language on outlining the conditions of use and violations and penalties. Due to the extensive redrafting of the current bylaw, it was determined that it was more appropriate to repeal the current bylaw 170 if approved and replacing it with the new bylaw 720. The updated fee schedule is in Schedule A of the report. It's summarized in Table 2, page 3 of the report. The proposed changes to the tip fee for impacted waste categories are intended to drive the necessary behavioral changes with the goal of increasing waste diversion through the use of financial incentives. So things like lowering the tip fee for clean wood, but introducing a new mixed C&D waste category with a recyclable weight rate. This will help transition to that higher level of enforcement for contaminated loads. Sarah will be presenting the solid waste management plan renewal report later in this meeting, which will include the consultation of, inclusion of broader diversion efforts with our municipal partners. But in the meantime, while this process is underway, an update of this tip fee bylaw, which is within the authority of this board, will provide the service with the tools to start driving that behavioral change. Per the June 2019 roundtable session, the CSW board directed staff to tie the future tip fee increases to the municipal solid waste fee to the Canadian CPI, or sorry, to the Victoria CPI in increments of $5 to be able to keep up with inflation. The last two tip fees that we saw were back in 2016 and 2019, and they were consistent with the CPI increases for those two corresponding periods. The proposed tip fee for MSW for 2023 is proposed at $145 per ton, and that's an increase of $5 over the current tip fee, and this has been incorporated as part of the approved 2022 to 2026 financial plan. This is slightly less than, or this is a bit $13 less than the calculated rate of $135 based on the actual CPI. And that discrepancy is due to a couple of main factors. Number one being back in 2021, the CBRD had implemented the COVID-19 response and renewal plan, and the CSWM service strive to maintain keeping those costs low, or foregoing the scheduled increase, and are able to provide that financial relief for residents, municipalities, and businesses of the service area. And secondly, we conducted a jurisdictional scan of AVICC membership, and we wanted to make sure that we're aligning with our regional neighbors in effort to minimize the amount of potential leakage of waste and mitigate the potential for illegal dumping, which ultimately affects the ability to fund the fixed costs of the service. So as you can see in table 1, on page 3 of the report, we're very much in line with the rest of the AVICC membership at $145. It is important to note that the two outliers, the $164 at Cowichan Valley Regional District and $150 at the Sunshine Coast Regional District, those two regional district exports their waste to a contracted landfill in Washington State. So that's, and I meant to say Cathedral Regional District at $240. Those two export their waste out to Washington State, and hence the higher cost. But even taking that into account, the median value is at $145. So we're very much in line with the rest of the membership. The proposed effective date for the new tip fee is January 1st, 2023. Should the board support the proposed tip fee bylaw, staff will provide a 6-month notice period to the public and businesses in advance of the updated fee structure, which will require adoption and update at this meeting. That's all for me. Open for any questions.
Excellent, thank you. And speakers list, Alternate Director Bissinger.
Awesome, thank you. I guess I just have a question for the cut grass and leaves. Are we trying to discourage people from bringing them to the landfill, and we want them to sort of put them curbside? It just seems like a pretty, I don't know, it seems like quite a big increase considering all that stuff is usually pretty heavy too. So, you know, I just see people sort of just buying more bins or bags and putting it to the curb rather than actually bringing them in.
Yeah, so right now that material is accepted for free at the landfill. There is a cost associated with the processing of that material. We're currently subsidizing the skyrocket costs. So there is a cost associated with, like a system cost associated with just the general operation, the management of the scale, the movement of that material and transport. So right now we are roughly seeing about a 60-40% split between residents and businesses. And again, like these are costs that are being absorbed by the rest of the service to be able to accommodate this for free. But moving forward, as we move to the regional organics, this waste stream will likely potentially be used as a feedstock, and we need to be able to account for that additional cost to be able to transport the material up to Campbell River if it calls for it. So that's the rationale for going from the current free structure to the proposed rate to align with the yard waste.
Can I just have a quick follow-up if I may?
Yep, go ahead.
So basically, once the new composting facility is open, we're not actually going to have the composting piles at the Comox or the Cumberland location. So all that stuff will also be transferred to Campbell River. Is that correct?
Yes, that's going to be the main consideration that will be the priority, to make sure that we have that needed feedstock to be able to feed into the organics facility.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Director Corfield.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question or clarity. There is no section on your table 2 for yard waste. You've got cut grass and leaves and then commingled food and yard waste. So did I hear you correctly that like we have curbside pickup of yard waste, which is predominantly grass and leaves, and maybe small branches, less than your finger size, but did you say currently there's a zero charge?
For yard waste, it's currently charged at $45, and it's being it's under the commingled food and yard waste category. That's being up to $110. But then, sorry, let me just.
I guess I couldn't see a yard waste category on its own. And I was clarifying cut grass and leaves, because I know my neighbors had complained to me they were charged $16 for a pickup truck. They had when our pickup had a problem, so they had their paper bags all full of their yard waste sitting out there and got tired of waiting, so they took it up to the landfill. But it cost them $16 to dispose of it.
The current yard waste is at $65 per ton, and that's staying consistent. That's why it's not in this table in the report. The report is only to reflect the changes that are an update to the current fee schedule.
So current yard waste is how much a ton did you say?
$65 per ton with a $10 minimum.
Okay, thank you.
You and Alternate Director Sullivan.
Well, thank you, Chair. I'm just curious about the requisition, if that's ever going back up to 6 million, or just what staff's thinking about that.
Yes, we are doing a step increase back up to the 6 million by 2024. So for the upcoming year, we're going to be stepping it back up to 5.5. So that we are in line with so that we can avoid those massive jump at the end of the renewal period, the COVID renewal period.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call question on receipt of the report. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And then item B, the bylaw 720 being Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service tipping fee and solid waste disposal regulation bylaw 720/2022 be given first, second, and third reading, as well as considered for adoption. Jillian?
Second.
Second by Cornfield. Any further discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Thank you. Next item, solid waste management plan renewal. Motion received report June 10th.
Move, Bissinger.
Joe.
Second.
Second by Cornfield and all the staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to introduce Sarah Willie, our solid waste analyst, who will introduce this report on the renewal, proposed renewal of the solid waste management plan. Sarah?
Thirty-second break.
We're just tracking down Sarah. She's likely calling in. Just bear with us, please.
Thank you, through the chair. So we're here today to present the solid waste management plan renewal kickoff. So this plan was last undertaken in 2012, 2013. It's an extensive consultation that occurs in order to set the direction for the region and for the solid waste service, and be able to afford us to be able to pass bylaws, to move forward with the initiatives identified within the plan, to identify the resources and the funding necessary to achieve the goals identified in the plan. And so through this process, we believe we can move forward with a number of initiatives, both that we are aware of today and that we feel we want to move forward with in the future, and will be identified with the public. So on the 2012 solid waste management plan, we have a few initiatives that we say are still left on the to-do list. So they're outstanding, and we know that they're still priorities of the service. For that reason, we're looking at this as a renewal process, and not necessarily knocking the house down and building up from scratch. We think it's more of a renovation of an existing plan. Through this process, we're hoping that it can be primarily staff-led with support of consultants, both communication consultants, as well as engineering and environmental consultants. We've identified a schedule and a path forward that we've outlined. There'll be some flexibility in that as we work through with the public and our advisory committee that will be created to support this plan and to drive forward the engagement, as well as get their feedback on a number of initiatives. At numerous points throughout the process, we'll be bringing this information back to the board. So we have a few touch points that we've outlined within there. We're looking to kick off with the approval of the advisory board. First, the recruitment, I should say. So the recruitment in the fall of members of the advisory. We're looking for stakeholders through a spectrum of the community, both through industry in areas where the plan is focused, such as construction and demolition, members of the public themselves, technical members. So hopefully some members of the municipalities, technical staff can join us. The approach will be to try and get a representation from the geographical area of the service, which of course is quite extensive, while still maintaining a reasonable number of participants within the advisory. We'll be hosting in-person and virtual meetings to reduce the travel and burden on those folks who would be coming from farther away, so that we can encourage participation from across the service. So we will be bringing those members of the board, members of the advisory, the recommended members of the advisory, back to the board in January, and initiating the process of approving the consultation plan. But as we've outlined it, the steps would be to initially do a survey, an online survey, to gather information from the public on how they use the system currently, how satisfied they are, and identify any immediate gaps that they can see. We'll do an analysis of the existing system. We will be meeting, of course, with the advisory and bringing back a summary of information to the board, identifying the principles, goals, and targets for this plan.
Some of those targets may come a bit later as we work through the plan and see what's possible. So we're not setting targets that aren't achievable through the plans and priorities that we've set. And then we have identified 2 additional consultation rounds where we look to go into the communities, visiting both our remote communities, our island communities, our urban centers. So an extensive road trip at the stage of asking folks for how we can achieve those strategies and those goals. And then again, once we've narrowed down those, to come back to them and say, what do you think about these? And at that point, we can reflect also on the financial and resource implications of some of those priorities. With that schedule in mind and that extensive consultation, we're looking to have a draft plan in 2024 and to finalize in 2025 for submission. And speaking with some of our counter regional districts that have undergone this process, it certainly is variable in length. We're, as I say, not looking to knock the house down. So we're hoping that this timeline is achievable through that renewal process. And, a more extensive approach to a solid waste management plan would certainly take additional time and additional resources. Sorry, lost my train of thought there. Yeah, I'm gonna finish there. I see the flashing light of Director Arbor. It's distracting. Thank you very much.
Director Arbor.
Sorry, thankfully it was a green flashing light.
It was a green flashing light.
Not a red flashing light. No, this is great. It is a long timeline to look to 2025, a 3-year process. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to consider this. I actually thought it might be a little bit quicker, but I'm sure there's rationale for this. And I like that you included, some consideration of both rural communities and how to support circular kind of models in smaller communities as well. I'm sure that will be appreciated as we continue to centralize everything towards Cumberland to still allow for not everything to come this way where, there's a couple of things that were not in the report. And obviously, if, keeping the service affordable, the best way is obviously to continue to reduce so that our landfill cost is kept in check. But I guess on the renovation, if we go for the renovation approach, I'm wondering if there's 2 things that I think I have been on my mind thinking about this. One is I think there's opportunities as everybody talks about the circular economy and moving to zero waste. What I'm not hearing is that we won't try to build an addition to the plan, like a secondary dwelling or something into the plan, which is, I've been thinking like in Cumberland, there's a ton of land. They've now serviced their industrial site. And a lot of our recycled materials and all that go to foreign places, Vancouver, or they go off island. And I'd be interested to see if there's a way to foster whether small or medium-sized businesses that really divert a lot of our stream right nearby, I know Tree Island Yogurt just created a little bit of a hub around their place. So is there a hub potential for the recycling and reusing of the materials that come our way? So to create a bit of a little economy around waste that could include the private sector, that could include us, and that would really kind of accelerate our reduce and our footprint around waste. And the second, so that's one. And then the second one was, I think what was not super highlighted in the report was how we're going to quash the, our methane and our GHG emissions from our operations. I didn't see that super highlighted, but I think it'd be important to have that as a principle which ties with the reduce, obviously, and the rest of that, but other strategies. So that's a long time, 2025. That almost takes us to the next election. So that's going to be a comprehensive plan. But I'm excited we're embarking on it. So I'll definitely be supporting passing this today and starting the journey. Thanks.
Thank you. Staff.
I might just weigh in just a little bit on the first point that Director Arbor made, and then Sarah, if you have additional material, for sure. When I look at the staff report, the themes that came out of your September 9th roundtable do speak about diversion. And I think there is a lot of room to have some discussion and dialogue around opportunities like you've described, partnering with industry and partnering with other organizations. So I think there's lots of opportunity for those considerations as our initial assessments get put together, and then as we're going to the community and as we're coming back to the board and we're calling it it's the public and technical committee, as that comes together and starts discussing some of the opportunities. I think because those themes are really forming some of the base of this work, then I think there's opportunity there for that discussion. Whether Sarah wanted to add on anything more to your comments, certainly.
Yeah, just that I think it does fit within the renovation. I think those approaches can be looked at as part of the strategies that work to achieve additional diversion in that realm.
Director Arbor.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up because James brought it up. In terms of the advisory committee, I agree that will be a great place to brainstorm and test some of those ideas. Is there any thought given about getting out of region, even if it's one person, say that you look at another jurisdiction about our size that has massively overachieved in regards to many of the goals that we're trying to do? Could we get somebody like that on the advisory? I know normally we would just consult with them and have a few phone calls, but I'm wondering if having somebody in the room with the other participants that's able to on a regular basis inject some other perspective, if that's been given consideration.
Yeah, our approach will be to work with consultants that have developed these types of plans in other regions and so are familiar with those initiatives that are being undertaken. And we're certainly aware of those people and in contact with them. So we expect that the successes of others will be brought forward as examples and opportunities. And again, looking at communities our size, so whether that's down island or in the interior, I think that there are those opportunities and we will incorporate those.
Okay, thank you. And Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't see a lot in the report. Maybe I missed it. But who would be on this advisory committee, and are now you calling that or going to change the name to a public and technical committee? Can you go into a little bit more detail on that? Purpose?
Yeah, I probably should have been more specific. The word advisory is a little colloquial. Our acronym, unfortunately, doesn't roll off the tongue. The RSWAC, so the Regional Solid Waste Advisory Committee. So that's, as I mentioned, looking to incorporate stakeholders. So members of the community will be also inviting members of the ministry to participate. There are some regions that have had success with that. We'll be inviting neighboring regional districts if they're so interested. Again, to keep the conversation progressing forward and to be able to allow everyone to speak and also respecting the time commitment that it takes to have a very large group. We're probably looking in the 15 to 20 member realm. So yeah, the main purpose of that group would be to reflect on the ideas and to sort of give direction to the strategies and to give perspective to the different viewpoints of the sectors.
And I heard you mention, or somebody mentioned, the use of consultants.
That's right.
Consultants don't work for free, so are the is this advisory committee going to be compensated?
In speaking with some of our other regional districts, I don't think we've nailed this down entirely, but typically mileage, the travel time to participate would be remunerated.
Okay, then this is, I was there for the last solid waste plan and the process that we used, which involved the board considerably. And because that does provide your cross section over the entire service area. And I just have a few concerns, I guess, regarding setting up another committee that makes recommendations to the board. And that's what they would be recommendations. So I just have some concerns about it, you know, especially without draft terms of reference, but that'll be coming back in September. So, okay, that was my only comments.
Thank you, Director Cornfield and Director Hamir.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Sarah, for the report. I'm in support of the renewal plan. It sounds like a really great way to move forward, not, as you said, tearing down the old one, but building on it. I just wanted to ask, and I guess I should have brought it up in the previous fees and charges, because I noticed there was a section on deconstruction waste. And are you going to be waiting until this process to kind of set those fees, or is that process kind of underway separately? Or is there a way that demolition construction waste will be included in the renewal plan?
So I'll defer to Vivian on the timing of any tipping fee changes, but I think the plan would be to continue to engage with the construction and demolition stakeholders. While there may be one or two representatives on the advisory, we recognize that it's a much broader stakeholder group. So targeted consultation with them on some of the initiatives would be a priority as well within this plan. In terms of timing for changing tipping fees, I'll defer to Vivian.
Vivian?
The proposed, the tip fee changes will be effective January 1st of 2023. We're providing a 6-month notice period to businesses and residents so that they can account for that in their business plans. Sorry, I don't know if that answers the question.
No, that answers the question. Thanks. I was hoping that was the case. I just wasn't sure, like, if we were waiting for any more consultation, but I'm really glad to see that that's moving forward. So thanks.
I could just add to that, Director Hamir, the existing solid waste management plan, it contemplates construction, demolition, and deconstruction. And so that is work that will go along parallel to the solid waste management plan renewal process. Being mindful that there is some significant behavioral change and working with not just the industry, but our municipal counterparts and developing policies and procedures, much of what has been talked about at the previous workshop and previous board meetings. So it's no small undertaking, but certainly doesn't need to wait until this review plan renewal process is complete.
That's great news. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And the next director, Director Evans.
Thank you, Chair, and excuse me, thank you for the report. I too support the direction that we're taking. I think it really lays out very clearly how the building forward is going to happen with this plan. My question is related to value added, and I'm just wondering how you see things like social procurement and value community benefit built into the review. Do you see that as participation on an advisory technical committee, or do you see that that would be something that staff would bring forward in the process? I obviously want to make sure that that is included in there as one of the lenses that are being viewed as this renewal plan is being developed. But I just wondered how you saw that discussion taking place, where you saw the touch points could be where that discussion would take place. Thank you.
Thank you for that point, Director Evans. I think, in our initial survey of residents in terms of where their priorities are, that's certainly something that could be measured to gauge the focus on that social benefit. But I think the lens through the evaluation of the different options, that could be something that is considered based on the responses from the public.
Great, thank you.
Okay, do I have any other first-time speakers? If not, I'll go to Director Cornfield. Director Cornfield, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, no, again, I don't know whether I missed it, but private sector landfills and how that will play out as to how we manage our solid waste, as we have at least 2 up here.
Yes, private sector landfills are part of the overall waste system, and they are, considered just briefly in our current solid waste management plan, recognizing that they do exist. I think there's been some significant developments at one of those private landfills and certainly some development at the others. So I think we'll be looking at those as part of the overall system within the solid waste management plan, certainly not exclusive of them. We respect the role that they play, and we hope that they'll be willing partners in working with us to achieve our goals of diversion within the region.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, directors. I don't see any further hands up. Oh, Director Davis.
See anywhere in this discussion that addresses at all what we're looking into in the past, which was waste to energy. And I'm just wondering if I can ask a question regarding that, where are we at in that process?
What's that? James?
Thanks. I might look to Vivian to provide an update with respect to our solid waste alternative technologies committee, and then I may have a comment after that. Vivian?
Thank you, James. We just got I've been in touch with Morton Hirschfield, who's the engineering firm that we've been working with to monitor the Sustain progress. The last update that we had with Sustain was back in September of last year, and we provided an update to the SWAT committee. Since then, as part of that last update, they had indicated that they'd be at full production for one part of their operation by year end. Since then, we've been in touch. We tried getting in touch with them on three separate occasions. The most recent being this past Monday, and it's been met with silence. So we're going to continue to reach out to understand where their progress. But at this point, we don't have any further update to provide.
Given that, is there any other operations possibly in the United States that could be further along in the process that we should be looking at?
James?
I can't speak to any specific operations elsewhere. I do know that that our solid waste team does keep apprised of operations in BC and around Canada and elsewhere, and where there's opportunity to either bring those concepts into the CSWM activities or to explore further, then those are looked at certainly, and at times they're brought through either our advisory, our alternative technologies committee, or to the board itself. Yeah, I don't have much more to add than that, Director Davis.
Okay, so essentially we're stalled in that. We're not seeing any alternative ways of exploring this. I mean, seeing as this technology is being used around the world, I'm surprised that we're not making any progress here. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to go Director Cornfield. I'm sure he's going to have a comment on that.
Thank you, Chair. Having just come back from FCM and Regina, I met with Sustain at their booth in Regina. They're doing fine. There has been some changes to equipment, mainly changes to environmental regulations that keep evolving. But other than that, they're doing fine. They are working quite closely with Nanaimo Regional District and Cowichan, and I would suggest that that's probably their next location that they're focusing on. And yeah, so There was a number of different technologies there, one on landfill gas that uses a cryogenic process to capture and clean the gas. It's being utilized throughout Saskatchewan and does an apparently good job. So I have a number of technologies that I met with out there, and we'll share them once I've had time to sit down and prepare a report. So.
Okay, thank you, Director Cornfield. Anything to add, staff? Okay.
Just a reminder that we need to achieve our 70% diversion in our 2012 plan in order to proceed with any waste to energy or alternative solutions. So that that's our focus within this plan, so that we can be able to turn our heads to some of those alternative options, and that's been the ministry's direction back to us as a board. And so that's where we're looking to focus our efforts within this renewal plan, so that we can be prepared for the next step and utilize the existing regional facility that we've invested in, the landfill at the Comox Valley Waste Management Center.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any further hands up. So on receipt, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? See none carried, and we have a recommendation. Arbor moves it, second by Director Hamir. Any further discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Thank you very much. Next item, Comox Strathcona Waste Management Capital Budget Amendment. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt, Evans.
Kill, seconder. Second Arbor, thank you. And I'll go staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Vivian Shaw will present this report on the capital budget amendment proposal. Vivian.
Thank you, James. Through the chair to the board, this report here is to outline the budget amendment approval request to the 2022 to 2026 financial plan, function 391, for the replacement of the gravel truck, which the allotted $200,000 was not carried forward from the 2021 financial plan due to a clerical error, and then an additional $25,000 in additional funds requested to advance the software, scale software project at the waste management centers. For the first one, in 2018, $200,000 was originally allocated for the replacement of the gravel truck, which was deferred to 2022 for operational reasons. And we were hoping to be able to extract as much use out of that piece of equipment as possible. And the gravel truck has now reached its end of service life and requires replacement. But through the quotation process, we realized that due to a clerical error during the financial process earlier this year, that $200,000 that was originally approved and was not carried forward from the 2021 financial plan to the 2022 financial plan. But also as part of that quotation process, we understand that the replacement costs for that truck has escalated by roughly about $50,000, citing lack of supply and increased demand as primary reasons for those that cost escalation. So as a result, the staff is recommending that the budget for this project be reallocated back. The $200,000 be reallocated back from the previous capital plan to this year's capital plan, with an additional $50,000 to be allocated to support this equipment purchase, to a maximum of $250,000 to be funded from the Capital Works Reserve by the same amount. And then for the second piece, this is for the scale software. This was identified as a critical asset as part of the AECOM asset management planning review process. There is, just given the criticality of this software, it is imperative that we do proceed with this as soon as possible. The original budget that we had for the software was 75 grand, and that was approved last year and carried forward to 2022. We went through a competitive procurement process and we received 3 proposals. Out of those 3, 1 was non-compliant, 1 withdrew, and the only remaining compliant proposal was $25,000 above budget. While we do only have 1 compliant proposal, we wanted to highlight that the grouping of those pricing was fairly tight, which would suggest that if we were to go back out to market, it's unlikely that we would yield a lower value contract. So staff is recommending that we proceed with the compliant proposal by increasing the budget by 25 grand for a total budget of $100,000, with the 25 grand to be funded by the Capital Works Reserve. The total increase to the capital expenditure for 2022 as part of this request is $275,000, which includes the missed carry forward. As you can see in page 4 of the report, it shows the ending reserve balances over the next 5 years. And even with the budget amendment, we still are at a healthy reserve moving forward. That's it for me. Open to any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Do you have any questions from directors? Director Arbor.
Thank you. Those 2 items make sense, but I will challenge one of them. I think it won't be any surprise to staff based on my last 3 years. The number 2 is fine. The number 1, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that it would be great before making. So first of all, this would be for a new gravel truck, I guess. Yeah. So as everything else, the market is fast evolving around non-petroleum based options. And I realized that, doing a quick search, there are EV gravel trucks that are available, but there's not very many. So I realize it's a bit early in that market, but it leads me to think that I would like for the board and staff to consider if we should at least do a scan of the options that are coming online, because this may result, instead of investing in a brand new gravel truck, say that some of those models are 3 to 5 years out. Maybe we would want to consider doing a used purchase for now in anticipation of a larger investment, either in EV or, again, as part of our solid waste management plan, maybe a RNG or something like that. I think as we embark on that plan, it'd be nice to not invest in old petroleum-based technology just as we embark into our new future. So I'm hoping that the board would, where the staff wants to comment first of all, but I would like to make to amend the recommendation that before proceeding with a purchase, that staff does an analysis and scan of other options that are more on the non-petroleum side. Thank you.
Any comment from staff?
Yes, we can certainly undertake that work as part of this procurement process to make sure that we do that complete scan of the used market to hopefully tie us over until then, until EV option is available.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, directors? Okay, on receipt, call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried, and we have recommendation 1.
I can move on, but I'm just looking for indication from staff if they want a small amendment to the recommendation, or whether what Vivian said could be included.
Staff, James?
I think given that the recommendation is really about the budget amendment.
Yeah.
And by amending the budget, this would provide us with that room to be able to proceed with the gravel truck as proposed. I don't feel that an amendment is required for the motion itself. And Vivian indicated that we can do that scan for used materials and being very mindful of the intent around EVs and that consideration.
Sounds great. So I'll move on.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, who seconded? Sorry.
It's Cole Hamilton.
Thank you, Director Hamilton. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And recommendation number 2, financial plan B, capital expenditure program be amended by $25,000.
Move to.
Director Arbor and Director Amir, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you. Item 6, Comox Strathcona Waste Management Capital Projects Update. Court staff.
Thank you, Chair. And Vivian Shaw is here to present this report again. And I'm not sure if you want to get a mover and seconder on receipt before.
Move receipt.
Move
Second.
receipt. Second by Hillian, thank you. And go staff.
Vivian.
Thank you so much, James. Through the chair to the board. I'm presenting this report on behalf of Cole Makinson, who couldn't be here today. We have a quick presentation just loading up. Thank you so much. Right, so this is just a quick presentation here to show you, provide an update on the 3 construction projects at the Campbell River and the Cumberland facilities. So the Compost project, which is a strategic priority of the CSWM service, this, as you know, will provide that in-region organic waste processing, which is really critical to advance our waste diversion goals, as stated in our solid waste management plan. We are progressing with the construction of both the organic composting facility up in Campbell River and the transfer station in Cumberland, with the goal of fully commissioning by the end of fall 2022. We're looking at closer to mid to late December at this point, due to a number of extenuating circumstances, including the war in Ukraine, which has impacted the steel production of the fabricated buildings. So we have actually recently we've decided to move that back to Delta here in order to be able to provide that certainty to the member municipalities to make sure that we are committing to working in alignment with the schedule that we had previously committed and in alignment with the rollout of the curbside collection programs for Campbell River and Courtney. So preparation is ongoing to ensure that we have this successful implementation of this new service, and we've been working closely with the communications and with the municipalities on the communication and education outreach, the procurement of the kitchen catchers, to make sure that they are aligned with the service contracts, in particular for the city of Courtney and Campbell River. So that ideally no later than the first quarter of 2023. This is with the understanding that both municipalities are still working through and advancing on their respective contract negotiations with their curbside collection provider. So the next few slides here, I'm just going to show you some aerial photos that we've shot just recently. I think these are from early this week, to show you the progress that we've done, have completed so far. So this is, again, construction is well underway at the Campbell River facility. This is the aerial shot of the compost. So this is the footings and concrete pours for the primary biofilter slab, secondary and storage buildings. There's This week, we're currently working on preparing the subgrade for the aeration trenches and installing the conduits for the primary buildings. In the coming weeks, we're going to be working with Hydro to install the conduits and fabricating forms and the rebars tie in for the storage building and the primary building aeration trenches as well. And then within the next couple of weeks, we're also going to be doing the concrete pour for the second building wall. So this is, again, just showing the rebar going into the secondary building. And this is the concrete pour. This is just a picture of what the finished primary building will look like when it's ready to receive the material. So this is not on site yet. I just want to give that caveat, but that's what it will look like. And again, this is also just a rendering, but this is the transfer station in Cumberland. So we are lots of work happening on site here. This week we have been working on extending the power communication. Oh shoot, sorry. Okay, there's lots of work happening on site. We're extending the power communication and water ducts and the installation of the perf pipes around the building. These are the conduits that are feeding into the plant. So that's it for the regional organics photos. And then for project 2, this is the closure of the Campbell River and the installation of the landfill gas system. So as of early May, Campbell River landfill reached its full capacity, and we had started the closure works as of that. That was the second week of May. So this work includes the installation of a 90,000 cubic square meter liner to cap the waste, the installation of stormwater management system and a gas collection system with 31 vertical gas wells, and the installation of an enclosed landfill gas flare. The construction is slated to be complete by the end of October. This is an aerial shot of the geomembrane being installed. There's a lot of prep work done to grade and roll this northeast slope to prepare for this install. The heavy rain has not been favorable, which has impacted the lining crew, but they're still on track to finish. The work has started on the excavation on the perimeter and the landfill roadside ditches. This is just a couple of shots here of the drilling crew for the vertical gas wells that are being installed right now. And this isn't our landfill flare, but this is a similar photo, or sorry, something similar will be erected at the entrance of the facility to the regional compost for the enclosed landfill gas flare. And then lastly, the third project is the construction of Cell 2. The Cell 2 project is the lateral expansion of the improved landfill development to the south of Cell 1, which is specified in our DOCP, or sorry, the design and closure plan. This work includes the bulk excavation of roughly about 500,000 cubic meters of earth, lining of the new cell in the same fashion as Cell 1, laying the landfill gas collection lines to connect the landfill gas to the east header, and then laying the leachate collection lines to connect the existing leachate to the existing leachate force main, and then also incorporating the construction of the leachate pond for additional leachate handling and holding capacity during those heavy rain events. So this is Cell 2 is highlighted in yellow. So this is a snippet from the Comox Valley Waste Management Center master plan, which was originally presented to the board back in March of 2018. This lays out the long-term disposal plan for the CSWM service, which As Sarah mentioned, this master plan will be used to support the upcoming solid waste management planning process, to plan for the future infrastructure of the facility, and to make sure that we are providing that long-term, reliable, cost-effective in-region waste disposal for our service. So some pictures on site here. Again, lots of activities happening. There's a lot of earth being moved right now. As of the latest update, they have the contractor has moved roughly about 54,000 cubes. So that's 11% of the way there. The next volume survey is next week to confirm. As you can see, I don't know, I guess this picture doesn't really illustrate it that well, but there's 4 excavators working on cell 2 right now with 13 trucks moving materials. I think it's roughly about a minute and 45 seconds per load. They are making good time. And then this is the location of the new leachate pond, which is right beside the biosolids facility. We've got 1 excavator out there working right now, working on grubbing and clearing that general area for the new leachate pond. And this is a shot of, this is a picture of the completed cell 1 prior to the placement of waste. So again, this is just to illustrate what it is going to look like once cell 2 is completed. Just in terms of timing, I just wanted to provide a quick update. So based on our calculations, we will hit full capacity in cell 1 by next February. Once cell 2 is completed, and that's slated for completion by the end of October, we are going to be planning to start padding out that cell 2 with select waste. So this is the squishier municipal curbside garbage, to be able to establish that 2-meter buffer, a protective buffer over the engineered liner system. So the C&D waste, what we call the crunchy stuff, will be disposed of in the existing landfill until this protective layer is established in cell 2. The estimated capacity for the cell 2 is just over 1 million cubes with an end of cell life of roughly about 9.7 years. So this will take us up to 2032. Based on a current diversion rate. So obviously the more we improve, the more airspace we save and prolong the life of the landfill. And that is it for me.
Okay, thank you. And I put Director Himmer with a question.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Vivian. That's a really impressive report about all the activity happening at the landfill. Just a question around all that soil that's being moved. Where is that all going?
That material is being moved to the old sawmill landfill site, just adjacent to our current property.
Okay, right. Thanks.
Okay, then I've got Director Cornfield and then Director Arbor. Director Cornfield.
A couple of questions very quickly. Can we use the soil that's being removed for future cover?
Yeah, I believe so. There is, we would have to do the sieve test to make sure that it is compatible with the material that's, it meets the specifications, but based on the indication that we have, I think we are going to be able to.
Okay. And then are you going to be distributing to the board your copy of your presentation today?
Yeah, the PowerPoint will be, there will be a link on the minutes when the minutes are posted, and it can be accessed that way. If need be, we can circulate it by email as well, but the link will be on the minutes.
Okay, yeah, the circulate, I couldn't read the charts and stuff on the organics facility because it was too small. So if you could email it, would be appreciated. Gas capture causes me a concern now, and I understand Campbell River is now officially closed. Is that correct? We're putting the finishing touches putting the wells in and.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So what have we done any volume calculations for gas? I have difficulty flaring off methane gas from a landfill when it, in my opinion, it could be used, and there's various technologies for capturing the landfill gas. Have we done any volume calculations of the potential gas production?
Staff?
Yeah, so currently, while it is closed, that sort of means at this point that it's not accepting any further waste other than the drill cuttings. So the construction is still underway. The wells are being installed, but there's no collection actively taking place in order for us to measure the volumes of gas that are being generated. So the only values that we have are modeled values or proxy values based on the Pigeon Lake landfill. So just off the top of my head, Pigeon Lake creates about 250 to 300 SCFM, standard cubic feet per minute. Campbell River, however, is a closed landfill, and so we'll only have declining gas volumes from basically this point forward. So that does make financing or projects for renewable gas more difficult from closed landfills, but not impossible. And that is something that we are looking at as staff and are having conversations with different service providers.
I will provide you with information that I received at FCM on scalable, small scale capture and cleaning systems.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Cornfield and Director Arbor.
Thanks, Chair. Just recognizing we have the timing of this report is great because we just have a couple more meetings as a board with this term, and what a great way looking at all these pictures and looking at all the achievements of some of the things we actually started this term, like the organic facility. It's really great to see all the progress. And I don't have a question. I just want to make that comment. I went to the Waste Management Center a couple of weeks ago, and if staff wants to pass on to the contractors as well, our thanks for the good work that seems to be happening. I was coming up the road, and I'm going to make you laugh, but it almost felt like an illegal operation, like they busted through the fence and there's just truck after truck crossing the road and we're being stopped, and just the efficiency of the operation. And it's really impressive. And I think for many members of the public, a lot of the works that we're doing right now, they don't see, a lot of these big projects and those concrete pours out of sight, but they're definitely not out of mind with this board. So thank you for all your work.
James.
Thanks, Director. We'll be sure to pass that information on to our staff and our contractors.
And Director Hamilton.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the report, Vivian. I wanted to follow up a bit on what Director Cornfield was saying about the emissions, and I was just wondering, I'm really encouraged to hear that there are discussions underway and to try to find a constructive purpose for those emissions. I hope that's being conducted with all due haste, given the volume that you're talking about per hour that's escaping from our facilities. I was just wondering if there were any technical innovations at all in the design of Cell 2, which would improve our ability to either capture or anyway, our ability to reduce the amount of emission coming from that cell when it's operational.
Staff?
Yeah, the ability to improve on our capture of landfill gas. We certainly are trying as hard as we can, given the resources that we have to apply to it. The design of Cell 2 is, I don't want to say simple, but it is essentially lined underneath. The innovation sort of comes afterwards in how you fill the landfill, how you operate the landfill, how you plan to strategically close the landfill, how often you put landfill gas wells in. So we have made changes from how we approached Pigeon Lake landfill and Campbell River landfills in that we did closure projects in phases and installed landfill gas wells at that time. With cell 1 and with cell 2, we're installing landfill gas wells and in a horizontal way. So instead of drilling them, we're essentially trenching them into the waste as we go. So we currently already have 2 lifts or 7 wells that have been trenched into cell 1. We are going to be putting in another 6 wells this year, and then further adding waste on top. So that means that we can turn those wells on progressively and capture that landfill gas more quickly. And we will be doing the same thing with cell 2. So those are the kind of changes that we are making within the service to improve our landfill gas capture efficiency.
Okay, thanks, Vivian. It's really encouraging to hear that we are following best practices in terms of operation of the facility to try and reduce methane. And perhaps impatient is the wrong word to use, but really looking forward to hearing about results on a sort of permanent solution to our emissions, something constructive along the way of perhaps turning it into a product like renewable natural gas that can be put to beneficial purpose. Okay, thanks very much.
Great, thank you, directors. Any more comments? Oh, Director Arbor.
Thank you. Since Dr. Cole Hamilton picks this up, I do have a question now, which is at FCM, what's become clear across the country is that the feds and with the provinces are now providing grants to other provinces to basically address practices and target methane emissions at landfills. In British Columbia, we took leadership before everybody else, and we have paid out of pocket for all these improvements. So I did raise at our Environment and Sustainability Committee the kind of unfairness of BC being a first mover, putting in regulations, us meeting it all on the back of our ratepayers, and how most other provinces are going to have access to these big grants in order to do the same. So since Dr. Cole Hamilton raised that, is there a way that we can put ourselves in line, or whether this board should do some advocacy so that when we do things like address cell 2 or future projects, that we would be able to access those federal grants?
Thank you, Director Arbor. Yes, we've been engaging with the federal government on the creation of their methane protocols for landfills, and as well following their progress on the offset protocols that they're developing. And it is disappointing that as we are regulated to collect 75% of the gas from our landfills, we're unable to access the offsets that are available to other provinces that don't have that regulated requirement. What we've given them that feedback as well. We hope to. We have seen some success in other jurisdictions where they have been able to access some grant funding on the ability to improve, but not necessarily to the requirement wasn't there that it had to be regulated or not regulated, I should say. So the offsets. That is disappointing. The grant funding, I'm hopeful that there will be some streams that will be focused just on the fact that there are methane emissions to be addressed, not whether they're regulated or not. So City of Vancouver accessed funds to improve their collection system, despite the fact that they're regulated and falling under that 75%. And they did that through some research that they were able to support in a feasibility study, but again, a much larger organization with tremendous resources behind them. For our purposes, we are aware of some grant opportunities that could be coming forward. There's a presentation in the next few weeks from the Clean Fuels Fund, for example, that has earmarked $1.5 billion over the next 5 years to look at biomass fuels. So those opportunities we continue to seek out.
And Jeff, follow-up?
Yeah, would it be appropriate if staff thinks so for this board under new business to propose to write a letter from this board to the appropriate provincial and federal ministers outlining the situation and our desire to have continued leadership on managing landfill gas, but also encouraging them to open up those, make sure that those streams and opportunities are open. Would that be useful, do you think, in your own staff efforts to try to influence that policy direction?
We have provided that feedback to Environment Canada and climate change staff directly. We participated in a national workshop that they held, and then subsequently I co-chair a landfill gas working group in British Columbia, which has participation from the majority of landfill gas collection systems in British Columbia. And through that group, we facilitated a secondary conversation with Environment Canada, and we're able to further focus on the BC challenges. And one of those that we highlighted for them is the regulated requirement to use the BC specific model in order to estimate what your greenhouse gas emissions are. So the biggest challenge to achieving your 75% is your denominator. And if your denominator is overestimating the gas that is available to collect, you'll never be able to collect it if it doesn't exist. And so there are some jurisdictions, again, Vancouver, Capital Regional District, they have funded site-specific models that have shown that that is an overestimation of landfill gas. So we have clearly communicated BC's challenges to staff directly. And if that fills the need that you're hoping to address.
If I could jump in there, I think Director Robert, yes, there could be a role there for the CSWM to advocate to federal ministries. Much of what Sarah said, we have a wealth of knowledge there to be able to provide that context.
Yeah, I think I will encourage that. I realize that often most of the substance of the discussions happen staff to staff, but to be honest, I think it's good to write to the federal minister, him or herself, I don't know who it is right now, and copying the provincial minister as well. And I would even say copy the team at FCM, because they're trying to do some advocacy on that as well. So it's sort of the chair considers under new business.
Okay. Anything further? I don't see any hands up. Thank you very much. So we'll call question on receipt of the update. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item 7, Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board Management Report. Motion received the report.
Move receipt, Lee.
Director Lee. Seconder. Director Davis, and we'll go staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff are available for any questions that the board might have on the various management report items. I do want to let the board know that there may be a requirement or a suggestion that we hold a special meeting before the regular September meeting. But that would only be proposed if a couple of topics that we're working on progress to a point where we need to update the board or we're looking for board direction. So I don't have any more information than that right now, but we are available for any questions the board might have on the management report.
Any discussion questions on the management report? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Bylaws, resolutions. First one, recommendation for bylaw 720, Comox Waste Management Service tipping fee and solid waste disposal regulation bylaw 720-2022. That the bylaw 720 being Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service tipping fee and solid waste disposal regulation bylaw 720-2022 be given first, second readings concurrently.
So moved.
Hillian.
Second.
Cornfield. Sullivan, sorry. Some sound the same.
I've heard that.
Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. And bylaw 720 being Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service tipping fee and solid waste disposal regulation 720-2022 be read for the third time.
So moved, Evans.
Second,
Cornfield.
did you pay it, Lisa? Corfield? Thank you. Any discussion? Question, anyone opposed? Carried. And the bylaw 720 being Comox.
Adopted.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call questions, anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. New business, we all add in a letter to Director Harbour. Oh. Director Hamilton?
Move receipt, Lee.
Second.
Chair, may I speak to this?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to recall the procedure. Do I read out the requested motion or just speak to it at this point?
I think Director Cole-Hamilton, you can speak to the correspondence, and then if the board's interested in moving the requested action after receipt, that would be the board's prerogative or your prerogative.
Thank you for reminding me. Appreciate that. I mean, I think I wanted to find a way to see if we could sort of plant a few seeds while our waste management renewal process is occurring. It seems to me that there are many opportunities for trying to get the public more familiar with the benefits and need for a pivot from demolition to deconstruction. I mean, as we know that it's the largest divertible stream that goes into our landfill, and it's approximately 1.5 times the volume of organic waste. So it's a considerable waste stream, and of course, much of it is material which could actually be reused in continuing construction and given a second life. So I was wanting to propose that we include information about construction and demolition waste in the planned public outreach for 2022. That we create a web page with information and resources on our waste management website to educate and promote deconstruction instead of demolition, to try and give the public a clearer sense of what the disadvantages of demolition are and why deconstruction has so many benefits. And I think one of the perhaps little understood benefits by the public might be the overall financial benefit to the public, something which most people have an interest in. Obviously, there's sort of really 3 large benefits. One is a GHG reduction, the other is a cost reduction, and the third is the reuse of the materials that are deconstructed. And the third part of the motion I was putting forward was that there be an active engagement between our waste management service and the local governments involved in the region to ensure that we're all evolving our policies in a way that are harmonious and congruent. Anyway, I would appreciate hearing the board's comments on these suggestions, but they seem a way of augmenting the work that we're doing in the solid waste management plan and preparing the public and the industry to understand and ideally be accepting and supportive of this movement in the community. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Director Hamilton. And Director Morin.
Great, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm really in support of this. As someone who's been looking for property for about 1.5 years, we were definitely open to the potential of finding a lot that maybe had an existing structure that we were able to repurpose or deconstruct. And I think with just the scarcity of property and also our I think our desires to try to do infill and utilize what's already there, I think it's a really good move all around. And certainly there can be some cost benefits depending on what you're looking at on the existing property. So I'm really happy to see this come forward, and I think the piece around educating the public is really great, because I think with education and knowledge, people can make different decisions, often people just don't know what's available or what's possible. So I'm really happy to see this come forward. I think many people are wanting to be responsible in this way, but just don't know really how to go about it. So thanks to Director Cole-Hamilton for bringing it forward.
Thank you. And Alternate Director Sullivan.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really thankful this is brought forward. Thank you, Director Cole-Hamilton. The cells that we're building are finite. So I'm hoping during the SWMP process, we really realize that we have to just go the other direction, go tenfold into the diversion. So yeah, I'm really happy to support this.
Thank you. And Director Evans.
Thank you. And I also want to put forward my appreciation to Director Cole-Hamilton for bringing this forward. I know it's been discussed at our strategic planning. And when we were at ABICC, we actually took a tour in Victoria of some sites that were actively under deconstruction. And so I think the recommendations that are being put forward really align with what we heard from the developers, the Unbuilders, which was the group that was working on the deconstruction. And public awareness absolutely is key. The other benefit I think that pursuing this will provide is there are many opportunities for workforce development in moving in this direction. They mentioned BCIT is actually creating a certificate for deconstruction. So I think this aligns with so many of the other objectives that we have. The only other thing I was going to ask is, as we move forward with this, would we be looking at the policy that Victoria has developed around deconstruction? I'm sure staff are aware that at the time in April, it was just going through council review. And so would be looking at deconstruction policy being incorporated, or a policy for deconstruction. Is that something that staff would also consider looking at?
Go to staff.
Thanks for the question. And yes, the third component of the requested action does speak about the regulatory tools, and that would be something that would be considered as staff takes a look at this direction.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Director Evans. And Director Hillian.
Thank you, Chair. I'll echo the previous comments, but I just wanted to add that I think it's important in the section 3 where it talks about other opportunities that we consider the potential for incentives to builders. I've spoken to a builder who was deconstructing a house in my neighborhood, and he spoke about the fact that he was doing this because it reflected strongly his own values, but it was costing him a lot more than if he simply demolished. So I think regulatory tools are one thing, but we also have to provide incentives to people who are willing to do the right thing. And hopefully that will be considered as part of the exploration. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Hillian. And Director Hamir.
Oh, well, I just actually wanted to hear staff's comment on Director Hillian's comment. So, but I did have a question too, but that was, I think, more important.
Okay, we'll go staff.
Yeah, staff made notes of the points raised around the incentives and sort of that I guess that carrot and the stick approach. We need to consider the full gamut of opportunities and tools that are going to be in the toolbox for promoting deconstruction. I don't know if Sarah or Vivian had anything else to add. I know that the work of promoting deconstruction and reducing our construction demolition waste, like I said before, it is part of our current solid waste management plan. And so this is work that can carry on in parallel to the renewal process. Whether or not you had any additional information to provide at this time, I see a light coming on from Vivian. So.
Yeah, those are, again, I think, to James's point, the carrot and the stick is something that we definitely have been in discussions with our municipal partners. As a lot of the construction and demolition activities are happening within the municipalities, which is outside the jurisdiction of the CSWM service, we do need to work and engage with our local partners to be able to provide, first of all, educate and provide that understanding of what's available. In terms of incentives, it could be just throwing it out there, not committing anybody to anything, but whether it's advancing their permitting process, which all equates to, there's a dollar value attached to all of it. So we're working with our municipal partners to be able to understand and explore those regulatory tools, but also to understand what the unintended consequences of these actions are within the context of, for example, their resourcing and general timelines and things of that nature. But that's definitely very top of mind.
Victoria, do you have a question then?
I did. So when we last had our presentation around deconstruction, it was noted that there was a fair amount of coordination that needed to happen with the organizations that could receive some of the deconstructed material. And I'm fully in support of us moving quite aggressively on this deconstruction incentives and supports for the community to move forward. I just wanted to understand if some of that was in place, and if there's anything, if there's sort of gaps that are still in our communities. So I don't know if staff have had a chance to kind of follow up since our last meeting with all of the deconstruction folks.
Your staff?
I think I can say, Director, that there are certainly many areas of improvement within this particular sphere. We're also working through an existing work plan that as we've seen from earlier presentations today, there's an extensive amount of work on the work plan. And so, this direction that's being contemplated today here certainly articulates some of the specific activities that the staff can look to begin including the incorporating into the planned outreach program for 2022, the webpage with information and engaging with municipalities. And then I think from there we would want to be updating the board on that work and how the project is unfolding to keep you current.
Thanks. Just cognizant that if we are starting, in January to be charging for demolition waste, that we're going to need to have some of the places for folks to divert to. So just want to make sure that's in place.
Okay, thank you. And any other first-time speakers? If not, I'll go to Director Hamilton. Director Cole Hamilton, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for getting my name right. It's a bit of an unusual one, but it is Cole Hamilton. No problem at all. That happens frequently. I just wanted to actually address the comment that Director Killian made. And I know that builder. He's actually my next door neighbor and a very good friend of mine. And when discussing it with him, I think that due to his generous nature, he chose not to take a number of opportunities that were cost recovery. I think as pieces were taken out of the house, he just put a sort of photograph on Craigslist saying, if anyone wants to come by and pick it up for their project, feel free. And I know that having spoken with unbuilders, that their business model, because they do this so frequently, is sort of involves a couple of different streams. One is which they try to sell as much as possible. And much of lumber in houses built before, I believe, 1970 is old growth, so it fetches a fairly considerable price. And the other thing is they have an ongoing arrangement with Habitat for Humanity that any other serviceable products can be given to Habitat, and there'll be an ongoing tally which produces like an aggregate tax receipt at the end. And the combination of those two things frequently ensures that there's actually a net benefit to unbuilding rather than deconstructing. And I think what this points to is I think part of what we want to be doing with the construction community is educating them on best practice, not only on how you do it, but how you arrange it financially how the systems like that fall into place. I think showing them that models like this exist and how they can be cost effective. I certainly have no objections to providing perhaps other incentives to encourage people to climb on board voluntarily as quickly as possible. But I think I just would like to be careful that we don't convey the message here that this is de facto a more expensive option. Certainly models have been developed which show it to be cost neutral or profitable. And Director Evans was talking about programs that are going on at places like BCIT. I can only imagine that as more skilled tradespeople are familiar with this process, it's going to become yet more efficient, and as more support structures are in place to receive these materials, it's also going to become more economically efficient. So I think there's not only a public economic benefit through reduced costs of landfill, there can also be an individual benefit for the project itself, for the deconstruction of the building. So I just wanted to add that to the picture, that I think it's I think once we've had a chance to share that information through this engagement process, we will find that builders may well be wanting to come on side for a number of reasons, including financial reasons. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Director Cole-Hamilton. And Director Warren.
Great, thank you. Well said, Director Cole-Hamilton, because in my research, I was getting the same information that actually deconstruction often can be less expensive. So I think the education to the development community, because it may not be their forte, they're used to demolishing and not deconstructing, so they may not have all these insider secrets. I think the other piece is a few of the builders who are a little bit more, I think, proactive in this way have said that when they have deconstructed, they've been able to use those materials in the new build and have saved, obviously with the cost of lumber, have been able to save a lot of money on construction of a new home. So I think it's all about education across the board, including the development community. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Seeing none, I'll call question on the receipt. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And Director Cole-Hamilton, do you have a motion?
Yeah. Thank you very much. So I'd like to move the recommendation, please.
Second by Director Arbor, thank you. Any further discussion? Call questions, anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And Director Arbor, do you have a motion?
Yes, thank you. This one is fairly simple. I would propose that CSWM write a letter to the relevant federal and provincial ministers outlining CSWM's early adopter leadership on the management of landfill gas, and that consideration be given to support our future efforts in the design of landfill gas related federal grants.
Second by Director Cornfield.
If let me speak to the motion.
Sorry. Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, I can pass it on if the board wants to see it on the board, but based on what I said, and if staff as well, I welcome staff if they want any adjustment to the wording, the precise wording, or if that's sufficient. Thank you, Chair.
Good staff.
I think, thanks, Director. I think we understand the intent of the resolution.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. No agenda items, no media questions. Motion to terminate, Director Cornfield. Second.
Secondly.
Secondly, thank you. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you, directors. If we don't meet in July, have a good